right, my favorite subject. What's up guys, and welcome to today's video. We're going to be speaking specifically about a question that I get asked a lot, and also probably most of the videos that you'll see me making are about questions that I get asked a lot and hopefully answer well. The GS, what we coin as the GS. Over the years it's been many different engine sizes and many different variations. So in 2020 today we'll be talking about the R1250GS and the R1250GS Adventure. So specifically we're going to be talking about the differences between those bikes, the differences between an R1250GS and the difference between that bike and an R1250GS Adventure. Now a lot of times when people are doing their homework and they're doing the research, they actually think that these bikes are two different bikes, and they're really not. It's actually the same bike. They all start life as the GS, and primarily they have a lot of the same equipment. So I want to kind of dispel a couple myths today in this video that they're different bikes. I also just want to kind of focus on the key differences that I think are the biggest, most important differences between the GS and the GS Adventure. The horsepower, the brakes, the overall feel of the bike is the same. So we're really, in this video, just going to focus on the differences between a GS and a GS Adventure. I feel like I've said that like 14 times already, so let's just get into it, all right? Let's go. All right, guys, now like I said, this video is just going to be on the differences between R1250GS and the R1250GS Adventure. Now, for comparison purposes, I tried to get bikes that were as similar as they could be. So this is an R1250GS in the exclusive colorway, and this is also an R1250GS Adventure in the exclusive colorway. And realistically, when people ask me, well, what does exclusive mean? Wow. I mean, with BMW, it's kind of hard to tell because I like to think that all of their products are exclusive. But specifically, it's just the colorway. And if we were to compare this bike to other bikes in the lineup, you'll see that there really is no big difference between, for instance, the exclusives and, let's say, their sister bikes, the HP versions. So whatever, colorway aside, these bikes are very similar. All right, let's start here with my notes. This is the window sticker for the R1250GS Adventure in the Kalamata Metallic exclusive colorway. So kind of like my double R video, if you watch it, I'm gonna show you what these bikes share so that it's easy to figure out what the differences are. I think that that's always the best way to kind of explain things, right? So, built into this bike means you've got the comfort package, which includes the chrome exhaust pipe, heated grips, tire pressure monitor. When they say chrome exhaust pipe on these bikes, they aren't referring to the muffler. They're actually referring to the header pipes that come out of the exhaust. Just means that they've got an extra little bit of a coating on it, which helps with discoloration over time due to heat. It has the saddlebag mounts for the aluminum boxes, which means that if you were going to buy luggage for this bike, you're getting the, what I like to call the military style boxes. You're getting the, or you're not getting, you're buying separately, the Adventure cases. The Adventure bikes already come set up with the Adventure racks. You'll notice that on the standard GS, it doesn't have any of those big bars around the tail. That's just because these boxes can't fit on that bike without these racks. So you already get these racks set up for the military style boxes, the Adventure boxes. Then you'll also get LED auxiliary lights on this bike, which means, and I'll show you in a second, you get fog lights. Basically just means you get fog lights. So you get the factory fog lights built into the bike, built into the crash bars. You don't get them on the standard GS, but they can easily be installed. Also, you get cruise control, same for both bikes. Dynamic package, Ride Modes Pro, Gear Shift Assist Pro, which means Ride Modes Pro, you have Rain, Road, Dynamic, and Enduro on this bike. Rain, Road, Dynamic, and Enduro for your different riding modes. Gear Shift Assist Pro, same thing on both bikes, which means you don't need to use the clutch lever to upshift or downshift on these bikes when in motion, providing that you're already rolling. I'll dig into that a little bit deeper, probably in one of my ride videos. What else we got? Exclusive style package. It means that it's got cross-spoke wheels. It means that's going to be standard if you get the exclusive. So don't expect to see an exclusive with the standard cast wheels or the regular cast wheels that you'll normally see on a bike. Premium package kind of highlights that the bike will have everything. Everything that a factory option could be, this bike will have. So again, it's highlighting that in the premium package you get the LED auxiliary lights, the fog lights, you get the saddlebag mounts for the aluminum cases, cruise control, dynamic traction control, dynamic ESA, the electronic suspension, keyless ride, Gear Shift Assist Pro, Ride Modes Pro, GPS Prep, heated exhaust pipe, heated grips, tire pressure monitor. You'll see a lot of that stuff was built into the other packages, so get a premium package and you'll be fine. Yeah, long story short, that's what is built into the 1250 Kalamata, 1250GS Adventure, sorry. So, like many people ask me, what are the biggest differences? Now, everything that I read off that bike, minus 4 or 5 items that I like to highlight, is built into this bike. So this bike has the gear shift assist pro, it has the LED headlight, it has the heated grips, it has ride modes pro, cruise control, the dynamic traction control, ABS pro. It has everything that this bike has, minus the following few things. So first thing that is pretty much very, very obvious to me is the size of the gas tank. You'll see that on a GS Adventure, it comes equipped with a 7.9 gallon gas tank. Now, I know for the non-motorcycle riders that are watching this video that don't really know how big that is, 8 gallons is massive. On a bike like this with the right amount of throttle control, you're gonna see 400 miles to a tank. Now that might not seem like a lot, my truck can do that, but on a motorcycle where you're really out in the elements, you're exposed to everything that you're riding through, having that extra range, especially if you're found in a pinch or you're found out of town or a place where you just might not know how to get around, the extra fuel is very, very important. Now, I like to kind of preface that with, this is where most guys step in and say, well, more range, bigger tank members. No brainer, I gotta have that bike, right? Yes and no, because although extra range, especially on a motorcycle, is a fantastic thing, it's not always necessary. Unless you're going on a trip where you know for sure fuel's gonna be an issue, and don't get me wrong, that happens. You could go to Moab, you could go get lost in New York and find a way to miss every gas station. But if you are on a trip where gas is plentiful, why suffer with a heavier, larger bike day to day for the 1 or 2 times that you find yourself on that trip needing the extra range? And also, if you're never on a trip with other riders that have bikes that have this kind of range or fuel capacity, well then you're gonna be stopping at whoever has the least capacity anyway. They're gonna be the weakest link in the riding group. So, for the most part, unless you're going somewhere where fuel is hard to come by, I always try and point people towards the standard GS, because other than that gas tank, everything that this bike has can be bolted onto this bike, so that you have almost like a mutant. You kind of have the best of both worlds. Also, the fact that the GS Adventures are actually taller than the standard GS. Now, this particular GS I have over here is actually a low suspension. You can't really tell anyway because they're both on the center stands. But the GS Adventure, kind of going with that adventure bike theme, is going to be a little bit taller, mainly because you're carrying a little bit more weight, and also assuming you are going on an adventure. Let's picture riding across Mongolia or Africa, or from Antarctica to wherever you want to ride to. You'll figure it out. You're going to want a bike with a little bit more ground clearance. You're going to want a bike with a little bit more height to offer you, because you don't necessarily know where or what kind of terrain you're going to encounter. Now again, I always try and push that question back to the purchaser, the potential purchaser. Where are you going on your tours? Do you see yourself going across Mongolia or Africa or wherever you want to go? Because if not, again, you're going to be dealing with a heavier, taller bike in the adventure fashion for 9 times out of 10 for the everyday rides that you do. And me, in my personal opinion, and you'll see from my previous videos and my future videos, but I have a regular GS. I don't have a GS Adventure, because in my opinion, the differences didn't fit my needs, all right? On to the next difference. Yes, okay. Second biggest difference, in my opinion, we've talked about the height differences, because this is an Adventure, this is a standard. We've talked about the gas tank differences. 8-gallon gas tank over here. Sorry, I didn't give you the specifics on the standard GS. 8-gallon gas tank with a gallon reserve, 5.3 gallon gas tank with a gallon reserve. So that's a big difference. You can see through the video, and I know a lot of times people have a hard time kind of seeing it in person, but you can just see how much more of a presence this bike has, how much larger it is, especially around the gas tank area compared to a standard GS. So that extra couple gallons of fuel will add weight, and then again, remember, like I said, the bike is also taller. So you're kind of dealing with all of these things. The adventure bikes come with the crash protection and the fog lights built in already. Now, again, think about Think about the biggest differences between what you would be doing with this bike and what you would be doing with this bike. In the case that you are going on an adventure where, again, fuel might be a necessity or finding fuel might be hard rather. Terrain may be whatever it may come across. Chances are a big bike like this is going to get tipped over. It's almost the better part of 500 pounds. It's 591 pounds as it sits. Now that's not heavy by motorcycle standards at all. It's definitely not heavy for a bike this size with the I want to say capabilities and technology that it has built into it. But that being said, after a long day of riding, especially if you're on an adventure, it's gonna get tiring. Or you know what, let's say it's the beginning of the day. What I'm trying to get to is you're most likely going to tip this bike over. You're most likely going to tip this bike over. You're most likely going to tip all of your bikes over. Or at least one of your bikes one time in your life. So the Adventure is going to come with the factory crash bars. You're going to get the lower engine crash bars is what we call them, but you're also going to get the upper crash bars. Now, upper crash bars are more important on a GS Adventure than on a standard GS. I've seen a lot of guys outfit them to the standard GS, but in my opinion, not as necessary, mainly because when your gas tank is this much wider, when the front of the bike is this much wider, this much bigger, when you do tip it over and the handlebar hits and most likely gets pushed away, the next widest part of the bike is going to be the gas tank. And there's a lot of ways to continue your ride, and there's a lot of ways to keep going when you're riding, even if you have an off or a spill. But if you poke a hole in your gas tank, chances are you're done for the day, probably for the rest of the trip. So GS Adventures, R1250GS Adventures will come with the crash bars for the engine, will come with the upper crash bars for the protection of the bike, and then you'll also get the factory fog lights, the LED auxiliary lights that BMW likes to call them. All right, and also as you can see, this is what one of the Adventure cases looks like. So big old military style case, very, very beefy. Nice, but again, not my favorite to be used day to day. If I were gonna go and have a bike like this, which I do, I don't have side cases on my bike because they make it wider. And I live in the suburbs and I commute to the city, into Manhattan. So if I, number one, had a big adventure bike that's already taller, already heavier, and now a little bit wider because of the tank and the boxes that I'm gonna put on it, well, it's a little bit of a difficult bike to ride in my situation. Now, again, go on some crazy adventure, riding from here to wherever, those things are gonna make total sense. But I'm making this video because I want people to understand what these bikes are like to live with day to day. Because you'll be living with it day to day, and you might just be going on a trip once in a while. So on a regular GS, you're gonna use primarily, provided if you don't put the racks on, to use these bags, because sidebar, same bike, same tail, same frame. If you want these bags on that bike, all you gotta do is get these racks and you can do it. Vario case, I like these. They're really cool to use day to day, and they're called the Vario case for a reason. You'll see, if you pop the case open, it's got this little bar inside. I can actually expand or contract the case. Now, the Vario case is really cool in this aspect, and no racks, nothing needed to bolt these up to the bike. Pretty much just put the lock cylinder in, we'll code it to the key that you use for your bike, and that's about it. Now, on the adventure bikes, the cases aren't any harder or easier to use. Like I said, it's just a little bit more cumbersome because you've got these bigger cases. They're not going to change in size at all, and obviously they're big. They're meant to take a beating. So just kind of keep that in mind. But luggage is the easiest part. Let's get back to talking about the biggest differences between the bikes. So weight on a GS Adventure, 591 pounds. Weight on a standard GS, 549 pounds. So not a huge difference. Bad at math, but that's like what, 40 pounds-ish? Not gonna make or break anything. The biggest difference that I've noticed between the GS and the GS Adventure isn't actually the weight. The height is a little bit harder to deal with. Again, just day to day, and that's just me. If you're 6'5" and you're watching this video, well, then, skip forward like 30 seconds. I don't know, do you guys see anything I missed? Oh, all right, here's one minor thing. On the adventure bikes, you're gonna get the adventure foot pegs. Like when you're on an adventure, you're gonna be in some big beefy boots, most likely. the going might get wet, the going might get muddy, the going might get windy. You're gonna want a little bit of extra grip where you place your feet on the bike, just so that in the situation that you're in, you can keep more control of the motorcycle. And yeah, I think that is about it. Okay guys, so like I said, biggest differences between the 1250GS Adventure and the 1250GS, providing they're the same colorway, which both of these bikes are exclusives. Just the standard GS looks a little bit different because it's black, and the GS Adventure is Kalamata metallic. But biggest differences: Adventure racks for the Adventure cases versus the standard racks for the Vario cases. Standard engine protection and upper crash bars on the GS Adventure. Nothing on the GS's, but can be bolted on. Taller, wider windshield, smaller, slimmer windshield on the GS. Can't get around it. Biggest thing, 8-gallon gas tank versus 5-gallon gas tank. Big difference. If you're a rider, you know the importance of range. In my opinion, which is going to affect the riders most, is the height difference. The GS is going to be about 1.5 to 2 inches at the seat, shorter than a GS Adventure will be. So, you know, taller, heavier, but more rugged and more usable in certain circumstances. Okay guys, thank you for joining me in today's video. Hopefully that's answered some questions between what a GS is and what a GS Adventure. Remember, I only specified on the differences between the bikes. So that means that everything else is the same. ABS, horsepower, brakes, wheels, all of the essentials are the same. This bike started off life as this bike. Other than that, other than those 5 differences that we talked about, the bikes are the same. So don't go crazy trying to figure out which one is better, because in my opinion, they're equivalent. This one is set up for a certain job and so is this one. So please don't forget, like, subscribe, and share. Again, this is Anthony Lewis with Motorcycle Talk. I'll see you next time. Choo 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 choo. And then there's like the outro, and it's like the music and like the rock audio and all that other stuff. Is ever like, hey Anthony, how are the videos going? Hey, you know, I haven't seen a video in a while. You guys see how much stuff goes in? Oh, look at that. You saw how easy that was? Everybody's like, the bike's so big. Nah, man, it's alright. You know what? That's a wrap.